Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of River Falls. And I'm Maureen Ash, and I'm presiding today. Happy 5th of July. Hope you and your pets got through last night without too much stress. Let's see. Okay. So, Lily, will you go ring the bell, please? The Liberty Bell is inscribed, proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. I did not know that. Good job. All right, we are in order. Okay, our July theme is refresh and renew. I hope we all feel refreshed and renewed after the rain. It has been such a beautiful summer. We will follow that order of service. And Callum, will you light the chalice while we're listening to this group of people sing with Patti Smith? No, I think it was just people in New York City. I don't think it was a UU congregation. I think so. I don't know. I just like Patti Smith. I like that. I believe strongly in what that song says. Okay. So now we can greet one another. Won't take long.
Maureen, that recording fairly recent.
Yeah, yeah. Joe Haberman sent it to me yesterday. I was going to have Bruce Springsteen,
Yeah,
but I like that one a lot.
yeah, that is very
I
good.
love Patti Smith. Okay. Okay. And now we have our joys and concerns. And anybody who wants to share something good or that concerns them, come on up and drop a rock in the water.
I got a new pair of glasses and sunglasses.
I've already shared this with Anne this morning, so Anne gets it twice. I live in the country, and there's a lovely young doe. She comes every once in a while into my yard, and she eats under the bird feeder. Yesterday, she came with this absolutely delightful little spotted fawn, and it was so full of life, it just could not keep its feet on the ground. It was just such a delight.
I have a joy and a concern, and I'll share the concern first because it's nice to end up with a joy. The concern is there was a potluck scheduled at Spirit of Grace Church for the migrant community, and the families requested it be canceled because of the recent uptick in abductions by ICE, and they don't feel safe. The joy is that my sister Sue and I spent some time in Florida for a couple of days with our other sister Mona, and it was a joy to be able to help her out doing some yard work, clearing out her garage, seeing that she's doing okay after the passing of her husband, and she's got a lot of support from friends, so we know she's going to be fine.
The last time I shared a joy, it was about kittens, and I will just bring an update of that because I know you've been wondering. They are about twice as big now. They're growing so fast, and they were a little bit shy when they first came, but now when you go into where they live, they plop onto the floor, and then they come running, and they spend a lot of time doing this to me, which I hate. So this rock is for the joys and concerns unexpressed. Thank you for lighting that, Callum. Okay. All right. Well, Richard and I were traveling west, crossing several states en route to visiting family. I had time to think on those long stretches when it was not my turn to drive. I pondered on a couple of things that seem wonderful to me: the human body and the United States of America. I could see some similarities. We stopped at a rest area and read the information provided about the California Trail, which is one of the routes taken by immigrants in search of new opportunities in the West, California to be specific. Following the Humboldt River Valley, they endured heat, dust, wind, and I am sure of this, given the endlessness of the landscape, hopelessness. I am such a big, puffy marshmallow of a woman. I imagined myself trying to keep my children alive in that landscape, and I could only hope I'd have had a backlog of strength built up from a more demanding life than the pampered one I've led so far. People can endure a lot. Their bodies are designed to adapt, and they have the capacity to seek out better conditions for themselves when adaptation won't work anymore. The immune system is always on guard. Foreign bodies come in and are immediately met with a force of cells that in effect sniff them out, determine whether they are a threat, and then, if they are, attack and kill them. Our immune system is the reason we're able to withstand so many of the illnesses we encounter in a day. When our T cells fail us and the bad bacteria and viruses slip past, we suffer with a cold or flu or worse. We all know what that feels like. A marvelous thing about this defense force is that it learns. Once your T cells have been exposed to a threat, even if they didn't have the arsenal to beat it back that first time, no way are they going to be caught flat-footed the next. They stock cells that will recognize, attack, and overwhelm it if it dares show its ugly little face again. I'd say the success of the human race is strongly linked to our clever, adaptable immune system. We passed such beautiful country, the sorts of hills that are rolling and smooth. Sometimes photographers take pictures of the naked human body in such a way that it resembles hills like these, and vice versa. I remember looking at a cleft in a hillside that could be the thighs of a giant woman sleeping through the day's blasting heat. The United States is, on the one hand, the land within the boundaries delineated on a map. On the other, it's the idea that unites the people who live here. It's kind of like the human body, flesh and blood, but also consciousness. A dead person is flesh and blood. It needs consciousness to animate it and make it useful and to keep itself alive as conditions change. Our government is similar in that way to consciousness. The framers of the Constitution tried to imagine a future for the country they were making, tried to think about human nature and how to protect the idea of democracy from the usual depredations such as vanity, arrogance, selfishness, and the age-old lust for power. A democracy requires an immune system that can change and adapt to these new threats, remember the old ones, and allow the country to maintain a state of health. When the US Constitution was presented to the states, people read it and thought, hey, there's nothing about our rights in here. Well, your rights are protected by the Constitution itself, they were told. We just wrote this thing. Let's wait to amend it. But James Madison, to keep the Constitution from being changed too much, came up with 10 amendments to address the most pressing and important rights he thought should be protected in the new United States of America. We call this the Bill of Rights. Since those first 10 amendments, there have been 17 more. They're all important, but I suppose everyone has their favorites. Someday, I hope there will be an Equal Rights Amendment, and I will not have worn that bracelet in high school, even though the cheap metal gave me a rash, and signed petitions and called my congressperson for nothing. I'm grateful for the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments because they abolish slavery, establish birthright citizen, so recently threatened, and guarantee all men the right to vote. The 19th is dear to my heart. It took more than 100 years for women in our country to win their right to vote. But I'm going to talk today about what I think is the most basic, most important right people have in a democracy, and that is the freedom to speak their mind, to write their ideas without fear of government reprisal, to worship or not in the religion of their choosing, to assemble with others, to petition the government for change. It's hard to imagine a democracy in which these things are not guaranteed. Our predecessors understood this. James Madison, he's on the left, placed it as the first of the amendments, thereby underscoring its importance. Thomas Jefferson urged James Madison to do so and then vigorously defended the First Amendment for the rest of his life. In fact, the First Amendment is based on a bill Jefferson wrote for the state of Virginia in 1777, and these concluding words are carved into the wall of his memorial in Washington, D.C. Truth is great and will prevail if left to herself. She is the proper and sufficient antagonist to error and has nothing to fear from the conflict unless by human interposition disarmed of her natural weapons, free argument and debate. It occurred to me, riding shotgun in a 2000 Honda Civic through a hot western landscape, thinking about how the brown hills looked human in form and of how I love this country, that the First Amendment is our country's immune system. We feel confident as we move through daily life, sometimes praising, sometimes criticizing our leaders, knowing our protection lies enshrined in those words written so long ago. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. More than 100 years later, Justice Brandeis spiritedly defended the First Amendment in an opinion supporting Whitney versus California. Charlotte Anita Whitney made a speech at a meeting of the Communist Party in support of anti-lynching laws. The government of California arrested her for a confusing mishmash of reasons that boil down to she might be inspiring terrorism, as nearly as I can interpret the charge. One of the things she said really inspires me. Not our country right or wrong, but our country, may she be right, because we, her children, will it so. This paragraph makes Justice Brandeis' central argument. Those who won our independence believed that the final end of the state was to make men free to develop their faculties, and that in its government, the deliberative forces should prevail over the arbitrary. They valued liberty both as an end, as a means, and as a means. They believed liberty to be the secret of happiness and courage to be the secret of liberty. They believed that freedom to think as you will and to speak as you think are means indispensable to the discovery and spread of political truth, and that without free speech and assembly, discussion would be futile, that with them, discussion affords ordinarily adequate protection against the dissemination of noxious doctrine, that the greatest menace to freedom is an inert people, that public discussion is a political duty, and this should be a fundamental principle of the American government. So, we make signs for rallies. We put up signs for candidates we support. We write letters to the editor. We post on Facebook or Instagram. We organize demonstrations against or in support of the Nazi Party. Either one is protected under the First Amendment. And yet, maybe Jefferson was on to something with that qualifier about human interposition, disarming truth of her natural weapons, free argument and debate. I'm from a family in which some members suffer from autoimmune diseases. My mother and aunt, for example, were racked by rheumatoid arthritis, a disease in which the immune system attacks the body it is supposed to protect. The pain and disfigurement they endured because their T cells were so horribly fooled cannot be overstated. Autoimmune diseases are diabolically clever in the way they are so efficient at causing self-harm. Something causes the body to turn on itself, like Russian bots unleashed in social media to sow lies and create doubt that leads to discord. Lately, I feel as if our country has an autoimmune disease. The First Amendment, which has served us so well, has somehow been turned against us, so that the right to speak freely includes the right to spend money to influence the outcomes of elections, which makes my freedom of speech, as a person at some distance from the top of the economic scale, akin to one T cell going out to slay a battalion of salmonella-causing bacteria, while an enormous wad of well-funded T cells decide instead to attack the cartilage in the unsuspecting body's left knee. The right to speak freely has resulted in so many sources of information on current events, news, that we are able to choose the source that suits us best. Rather than a reasonably unbiased dollop of what happened that day with some editorial content that's clearly labeled as such, we get a cherry-picked assortment of news that fits and reinforces our ideas and opinions. There's no requirement that it be accurate. It's our responsibility to suss that out. And what a tough job that can be. So many of us form opinions, make decisions, and even vote on the basis of news that is not even true. Somehow, free speech, our first line of defense against the infection of tyranny, has become its willing accomplice, the autoimmune disease of democracy. Medical science is making progress in treating autoimmune diseases. They're coming up with drugs to suppress the immune system, to treat the symptoms of the diseases, to identify people who might be susceptible to those diseases and work with them to avoid stressors that could tip their bodies toward a hyperactive immune response. We can make progress in treating our country's autoimmune disease. Research shows that genuine expressions of curiosity can reduce conflict and polarization, even among people who strongly disagree. We can ask thoughtful questions and listen closely to the answers. We can tell and listen to stories. Storytelling is a way to get salient points across, and listening to others respectfully is a way to better understand the point of view of the storyteller and to learn from that person's experience. Local institutions, from 4-H to Cub Scouts to bowling leagues to book clubs to churches to the Rotary, all of these bring people from diverse backgrounds together. We see each other and get to know one another's concerns. We build trust. Support your local news organization. It costs money to pay a reporter to attend all the meetings that take place in our communities. There are county board meetings, town board and plan commission meetings, city council meetings, so many meetings. Communities in which there's a local paper that reports on the goings-on in these meetings are stronger. When there are eyes and ears on our representatives, they're less likely to make quick, easy decisions, or worse, to waste or even steal our tax money. Because of this, banks are more careful in lending money to these communities and charge higher interest rates when they do lend money. And that leads to higher taxes on community members and or a reduction in services. In June of this year, just a few weeks ago, there was reporting on a study from University of Illinois, Chicago, that lack of local news coverage, that is, eyes on municipal and local government, has cost local governments in the United States more than $1.1 billion every year. That money goes from our communities and into the pockets of the banks, usually elsewhere. Stronger communities are built on trust, and trust comes from being there for one another. But at the time of her illness, doctors seeking to treat my suffering mother were stymied. How do you fight a disease that is just the body system doing its job, albeit too enthusiastically and misguidedly? How could they return her hyperactive immune system to its formerly responsible state without doing irreparable harm to her body or to the system itself? In the end, there was little they could do to help her manage her disease. She could no longer work, no longer hold a baby grandchild in her arms unless she was seated, no longer take a pain-free moment for granted. The hormone they gave her to ease her symptoms eventually caused her bones to dissolve. The brace she was given to help hold her up instead cracked her pelvis. It was weakened that much. She could not live long after that, much as she wished she could stay. I fear this disease for myself, for my kids, my grandkids. Any ache in a joint catches my attention. I don't think anything could scare me more. I didn't think anything could scare me more, actually, until now, seeing what happened to my mother starting to happen to my country. This particular autoimmune disease attacks the connective tissue, which is what holds us together. That's my mom in 1945, her graduation from nurses training. Any questions? Get out soon.
Have some questions or comments. Where's that microphone?
So then there needs to be a discussion of where do we go from here? How do we repair the connective tissue? And in your talk, you mentioned a couple of things about being curious about one another.
Yeah, I think that you do a good job of that. I've seen you dive into conversations that I would just avoid myself. So good job. Did you have anything, Don?
Oh, I just a couple of comments. Number one, that slide you showed of news agencies. I believe I saw AP right at the top there, sort of in the middle, not left, not right. Is that correct?
Right.
And CNN there you see is a little bit to the left.
Oh, sorry.
They might be even more to the left than I don't know what the I see what the left and the right. I don't know what the vertical scale is doing there because I can't read it.
It's more accurate the higher you go, and it's more to the left and more to the right. So you're right. AP, Reuters, Bloomberg, C-SPAN. Those are the ones.
Those are the blue ribbon ones that we
blue
should
ribbon ones.
look
And
at.
NPR is up there, just a little titch to the left.
And I see CNN, and I thought I saw Fox before, but now I can't see it.
Fox is way down here.
Oh, bottom right.
It says, in the orange rectangle, extreme unfair interpretations of the news.
Yeah. So the comment that I have on the news is I plead guilty of looking at Fox on the computer after the fact, you know. I don't want to waste my time, real time, but I do waste my old time, I guess, looking at their commentary. And then what I find interesting, and maybe this is just me, is the comments following, because they're not always in agreement. There's a discourse going on. And so I look at that somewhat favorably, that we have freedom of speech, and even though a news agency might be slanted one way or another, the people are more than happy, and we're all sort of screen addicted, to comment on what they think is wrong about what they just saw on their computer screen.
Yeah.
And I don't know where to go with this, but I thought it was coincidental. I thought it just at the beginning. Autoimmune is AI. It's like it's got the same initials. And I'm wondering, a lot of people don't have faith in AI, but I'm wondering if AI could be our autoimmune system here. Some people are thinking it's very dangerous, that it could lead us to disastrous result. But what it does have the capacity to do is survey everything that's going on, so to speak, and coming up with conclusions. And my use of it so far, and it's still developing, is that it's a valuable tool to keep us on an even scale as far as what's truthful, what's not truthful, what's right, what's wrong.
Well, I hope
That's
you're
just
right.
one opinion, yeah.
I hope you're right, because ideally it would be neutral, and it would just say, that's not true, that's not true. I don't know if that's, I mean, we can hope. We can hope. I don't like AI because it always offers to write my letters for me. Suzanne?
follow up on what you just said, Don. I've been doing research on appraisal work, and a lot of it I'll go to the internet, and there'll be AI interpretations, but down in the bottom in there, in the fine print, it will say, and it can be very helpful, it can be totally wrong. And it says, it tells you in the little fine print, they may be wrong, and to do your own research.
Oh.
Essentially, it says that. That's exactly, thank you. Be so careful of it. So it's not, you can't just go to the first layer, then you have to use your intellect to work with what's there and go another layer.
So, search engines sometimes have an AI summary of, whatever topic you're researching. And there in the gray fine print, you'll see the original source. Always go to the sources and see, okay, what is this based on?
Also, so they get credit for the people that actually do research, like AI. Just more on the AI, just be so careful that there are always credit sources at the bottom of it. I also have just InfoWars is now on the other side, now that it's owned by The Onion.
Oh, InfoWars?
InfoWars on the bottom.
Yeah, because The Onion bought it.
Yep. And now it's finally true.
Not only that, but about AI again, it's very dangerous because not only is it not very good for people and what it's learning and what it's not learning, but it also consumes a lot of water and it hurts the environment very much so. So that when it consumes all the water, the people that actually need the water don't get that, and that's not very good either. So.
That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay.
I'm also going to point out, it looks like this chart is from 2018. So we've got to keep in mind we've got 8 years of changing opinions on a lot of things. I feel like CBS might be going a little that way due to its current ownership. So if people are looking at this as a reference, might want to see if there's a current one somewhere out there. But yeah, it's just really important for people to keep an eye on this kind of stuff. I think there's a website called Ground News that tries to do its best to show where certain news sources are leaning. It'll show you the same story, but what is this side saying about the story versus what is this side saying about the story, so that you can kind of compare. But there's a lot of great stuff about like keeping in mind where are we getting our information from, and with that, how is that impacting ourselves as a country is a great thing to discuss. And
Right.
I appreciate the conversation topic.
Thank you. There's a website called Tangle, and it's kind of like that. It's like what the left is saying, what the right is saying. Here's what I think.
So League of Women Voters has one that's 2025.
Oh.
Similar chart, but it's looking different.
I just chose this because it's literally a big pile of all the different kind of news that we have access to. And really, it's good we have so many sources. And I think in the early days of our country, there wasn't just one newspaper for Minneapolis. There was the Swedish newspaper and a German newspaper, and just like there used to be so many different hospitals. And it is kind of too bad that it's all condensed down to the Pioneer Press and the Star Tribune. It might be more interesting to have more of them, but this is where we are now.
There's there's an interesting book that I read a while ago, back in 24, when a lot of this stuff started to really hit the fan, called the Gutenberg Parenthesis. If anybody's heard of that, or if you see it in the library, I do highly recommend that you pick it up. It is primarily about communication technology throughout our history, starting with the printing press and how it has lowered the barrier of entry for voices within the public discourse, right? Back before the printing press, we had, preachers and councilmen or whoever. You'd stand and you'd listen to them speak, but that was it. That was the sphere of their influence. Once we had the printing press, then you could have a singular voice spread all across the world, right? Now with the advent of TV and the internet and radio and all that other fun stuff, anybody can have their voice be heard. That's the thing with social media. The fun part as AI ties into all of this is that we've now removed that human element, right? And AIs can be prompted to give a particular spin on pretty much anything. And so we need to re-inject ourselves into that conversation.
What was the name of the book?
Gutenberg Parenthesis.
The Gutenberg Parenthesis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. All right, anyone else? Great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the announcements. We can all help with the painting. You don't have to come down here and get all spattered. You can contribute a gallon of paint. Or you could do both. No service next weekend. And then the July 19th one promises to be quite interesting. Do you want to explain it, Anne?
Where's the microphone?
Right here.
Tatiana is a woman I've been Zooming with weekly for the last year. She lives in Kharkiv, Ukraine. I hear a lot about the war through her, and she is very interested in having the world know more about what her country is experiencing. She's agreed to join us by Zoom, but she's going to record the first portion because you never know if there's going to be Wi-Fi or electricity in Ukraine and we hear your hour. So we will do it ahead of time, but then hopefully she will join us live by Zoom to answer questions. So I think it should be very interesting and an important opportunity for us to learn more about her country.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then that last week of July is going to be, this building will be closed for painting. And anybody that can help will be appreciated. It's always fun to work together. And there's a basket and the table in the back for gifts, but your presence here is a good gift as well. I saw with my own eyes that there are treats in the kitchen, and they look good. Wendy brought them, Wendy and Jim.
Oh, and I have some rhubarb coming from the garden. So the garden is still producing rhubarb, and it's still okay to pick it if you're interested in taking rhubarb home.
Yeah. Okay. Now we can have our closing words. Thank you, everybody.